Okay, so let me ask you a question. Does God waste ink? No. Do you think he just kind of wrote a few things like, they may need that, may not. We'll just add a few, throw in a few extra books in there for them. They don't really need them, but I'm going to throw in a few extra books. No, I'm a firm believer that God doesn't waste ink and that everything that's in that Bible is necessary for us. Amen? Every word is God-breathed, as it said. Okay, Revelation 1:3. Let's go there. This is why we go, I get a lot of trouble for preaching on this. Like never before have I had so much trouble, but I think the times are changing, and I think skeptics are getting more skeptical, and even the hard truth that we used to know and we're very clear on has shifted so that now it's like, oh yeah, I've heard that all my life, that kind of thing. And it's going to really, Jesus will come like a thief in the night. So it says in Revelation 1:3, blessed is he who reads and those who hear. So guess what? You're even blessed by hearing the words of this prophecy, talking about the book of Revelation. And those who keep the things that are written in it, for the time is near. Now this is 2,000 years ago. The time was near. And the birth pangs are speeding up and getting more intense. We can see it in our culture. And so, okay. So we go to chapter 5. We're just going to brush up real quick. Chapter 5, there's the scroll. You guys see the scroll up on the screen? The scroll? Not there. It is a scroll that's on the screen. Anyway, there's a scroll. You got it? Boom! No, that's not it. That's Scott Cooper in angelic form. There we go. There's a scroll with 7 seals. This is the deed to the earth. So you know what a deed is, right? Like it's the title. Like your car has a title. And once you pay the bank off, you get that title and it's yours. Well, that's the title of the earth. He gave it to Adam. Adam gave it to the devil. Jesus had to buy it back with his blood, and now that's the title deed. And it's been sitting up there in the hands of God, and it hasn't been opened yet, because when it opens, that's the end. And so he's given at least 2,000 years, and who knows how much more, to fulfill the time so that people can come to God. But when the time is over, in chapter 5, Jesus, the only one, the Lamb that was slain, takes a scroll and he starts opening the title deed to the earth. And with each seal that's open, a corresponding judgment occurs. Now, another word for judgment is event. So with each of those 7 seals are an event and stuff like that. But sometimes they look like judgments as well. But whenever he's looking at the martyrs, that's not really a judgment that's poured out on the earth. So it's an event that happens. So it's boom, 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 boom. These things happen. They fall in line. Chapter 11. We'll just skip ahead. We went to, and we talked about these 2 crazy guys or people that are the 2 witnesses, and they have these special powers, kind of like Elijah, to call down fire and consume people that try to attack them. Nobody can get to them until halfway through the tribulation, and then the enemy, the devil, is able, through the Antichrist, is able to push them out, kill them, and their bodies lay dead in the street for 3 days, and God comes and resurrects them, takes them up to heaven. Then we come to chapter 12 and 13, and this is where it gets a little funky, because it's like, what, a dragon? Well, this dragon comes out of the sea with 7 heads, 10 horns on, I think, each of the heads, or maybe it's just 10 horns in all. I'm not really sure. It's not really specific. But this is a sign. Someone say a sign. Now, a sign is one thing that represents something else, okay? Have you ever been talking to somebody and they're talking about one thing, but you think they're actually talking about something else? Okay, that might be a sign. That's your sign. So there's not a literal dragon, but it is representative of a dragon. So we have these 3 key bad guys in Revelation. You've got the dragon, which is the devil, that serpent of old, that accuser of the brethren. And then you have the beast with 7 heads and 7 horns. And actually, the devil in this picture has 7 heads and 10 horns, and the Antichrist has 7 heads and 10 horns. And then there's another beast that crawls up out of the earth, which is the false prophet. This is just a cool artistic rendition of it, kind of set back in Rome, which is how probably John would have seen the Revelation, was through what he sees in his day, and just these pictures, What we're going to see, though, is there is a bunch of repetitive pictures throughout the Bible that in Revelation we see, well, that's weird, but there are things and repetitions that happen back in Daniel, that happen back in Ezekiel, that happen in Isaiah. I mean, it's all over the Bible. These are prophetic pictures that mean something that John would have kind of understood. So, I'm in the dark. I feel like I feel like it's begun. No. I was going to say, I feel like Frodo. I'm naked in the dark. Anyway. Yeah, Frodo said that. It was just the weirdest line. I feel naked in the dark. Anyway. There goes John John. Everybody give it up for John John. We're pushing too much power. Hey, there we go. I'll come over here. I'll come over here. Oh, hey. Yay. All right, let's move on. Because we'll be here all night. I really try to cut it down, but we're going through Revelation. This is just hard. Okay, so where are we in this picture? You know, where are we in 2014? Where are we? Well, I have kind of an idea, I think, and agree or disagree, whatever. It's cool. Okay, so we have to, if we want to know where we are, we have to look into history. How many of you guys are history buffs? Show me with big hands. You love history. You love reading about empires. You love playing Age of Empires. You love watching war movies. Gladiator. Alexander. Battle scenes of Alexander. 300. Okay, all right. All this is going to be playing in motion tonight. Okay, so where are we? We have to look at history to see where these prophecies. So John is one of Jesus' top 3 disciples. Now he's an old man. The others have been all killed off, and now he's out on the island of Patmos all by himself. And he's seeing these images. He's literally seeing these images that are sometimes pictures and sometimes real events that will play out. So it's kind of a dream within a dream sometimes. But these pictures, a lot of them came from the Old Testament. So let's rewind to the prophet of Daniel. So before we can go forward in Revelation, we're going to have to go back to the Old Testament. Just like they said in Back to the Future. Before we can go forward, we've got to go back to the future. All right, so... Okay, so the kingdom of Babylon has conquered Jerusalem and Judah, and they have taken all the best and brightest kids, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and Daniel, and they've taken them off to there. And this pagan king named Nebuchadnezzar, I call him Never Had a Razor, because they have these big old gnarly beards, and he has this dream, and he can't interpret it, and Daniel says, I can interpret it, and so we're going to pick up in Daniel 2. So if you have your Bible, or if you have your notes, and boy, you're going to have to write like fast, okay? So if you have your notes, we're going to pick up in Daniel 2, verse 28. Okay, so Daniel goes to Nebuchadnezzar and says, there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what will be in the last days, or in the latter days. Okay, so that's kind of the setup. So he says, okay, Neb, you've had this vision of this statue, and the head was made of gold. Let's go ahead and put up that statue. So the head is made of gold, the chest is made of silver, the waist is made of bronze, the legs are made of iron, and then the feet, of all things, are made of a mixture of iron and clay. And he's like, yeah, that was my dream. Okay, and then he interprets the dream. We're going to go to verse 38. He said, you, O king, are this head of gold. So Babylon is the head. Okay, but after you shall rise another kingdom, which will be the silver chest. Inferior to yours, because gold is inferior, or silver is inferior to gold, but stronger. Third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over the earth, or the known world of that time. Be made of bronze. Bronze is stronger than gold and silver, but less quality. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron. Now, iron is stronger, but again, less valuable. Inasmuch as iron breaks into pieces and shatters everything. Whereas you saw the feet and the toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided. Yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with the ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet, which are 10 toes, remember hearing 10 anywhere? 10 horns, 10 kingdoms. 10 toes on the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay. So the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed in with ceramic clay, they will not adhere to one another. They're going to be polar opposites. They just will not. It's like oil and water. It's not going to work. Just as iron and clay does not mix. So Daniel says, this is a snapshot. Go back to the picture of the other one. This is a snapshot of all the kingdoms, basically, of the earth. The big ones. There's other ones, the samurai and blah, blah, blah. But these are the ones that kind of matter in the biblical sense. These are the ones that are going to be the through line to the end times. And he says, okay, so the four kingdoms here, the head is made of gold. That's Babylon. The chest and arms, we find out in Daniel a few years later. The silver, that's Medo-Persia. And Persia comes in and just conquers without even raising a sword. That's found in Daniel 5. Then the waist of bronze, we find out in history that's Greece. I'll show you why here in a minute. And then the legs of iron are Roman, which is interesting because there's two of them, and there's the divided empire, the Eastern Empire and the Western Empire. And then you've got the feet, which are something else, which most scholars believe is the future. So we are hanging out right about the ankle. So basically history is working its way down the timeline, and we are in the ankles right now, trying to figure out what part of the foot we're on right now. Does that make sense? So that's where we are. Going in the past, now we're telling where we are now and what's going to happen in the future. Now let's keep our eye on this moving targets. Someone says, we're going somewhere. There's going to be this moving target. You're going to have to hang with me because this is going to be awesome. But it's going to move fast, so you're going to have to hang with me, all right? So you understand this is these major empires. One was taken over by the other, which was taken over by the other, which was taken over by the other. And then something happens with the feet that's kind of a mixture of what was before. Okay, so there's a lot of repeated imagery that links together. You're going to hear phrases that you've heard. Wait, I heard that in Revelation. Wait, I heard that over in here. I've heard that again and again and again. These phrases are prophetic phrases that mean something. So Daniel grows older, and he watches Babylon fall, and the Medes and the Persians take over in chapter 5 of Daniel. And then we fast forward to Daniel's vision that he has in chapter 7. This is going to get trippy. Some of you are going to think he's tripping on acid, but this is actually a cool Jesus vision. Poor Daniel, at the end and beginning of all his visions, it's like, it was in this year I had this crazy vision, and by the end of the vision, he's like, I was so distraught, I was jacked up for days. And then you see this, and God's like, hey, guess what? I'm going to do it to him again. Here's chapter 8, and he's like, oh man, I couldn't even eat after that. I was destroyed because he saw what was coming. So if he felt it, it's okay to feel it too. All right, so Daniel 7:3. And four great beasts came up out of the sea. Now, we've heard of this before, haven't we, in Revelation, didn't we? This is a repeated kind of thing. A beast came out of the sea. Each one of these four beasts are different than one another. So in prophetic lingo, when it says beast comes out of the sea, what it's talking about is Gentile empires. Because if you can think about the Mediterranean Sea, and Jerusalem is right here, and here's the Mediterranean Sea, and out of the sea comes all these crazy Gentile empires. Now, if you look in before this time, before Babylon, God said, guys, get your stuff together, get your stuff together, get your stuff together. They didn't get their stuff together, so he's like, all right. So he allowed empire after empire after empire to occupy them and to take them over. And they didn't become a nation again until 1948. So this is really an interesting thing. I mean, it's pretty recent. So we're going to be coming into modern recent history as well as other things. Okay, so out of the beast comes out of the sea. This is a Gentile nation or an empire. And later, I guess in verse 17, this angel comes down and he's looking at Daniel, and God says, "Hey, Gabriel, tell him what this is all about." And he's like, "All right, I'll tell him." So he goes and interprets it. So I'm just going to lay that I'm going to lay the interpretation next to each scripture. So we're in Daniel 7:3. The four beasts come out of the sea, each of a different type. Verse 17 interprets it and says, "Those are great beasts, four kings which arise." Okay, so the first one is this lion with eagle's wings. And the eagle's wings get plucked off. Now, this is Babylon. Babylon is, I don't know if you guys have ever seen, like when you research Babylon or whatever, you see this lion with wings on it, right? That's a symbol of Babylon. So it gets its wings picked off of it. And so it's depicted as this majestic thing, also the head of gold, so it's a very majestic thing. Babylon goes all the way back to Ham's grandson, Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel. You guys remember the Tower of Babel? So we're talking 3 generations after Noah. Never mind, let's move on. So Babylon goes way back, way, way back. Okay, the second beast is this bear that devours flesh, and he has 3 ribs in his mouth. Well, that's cool. Well, this turns out to be Medo-Persia. Persia actually has to consume 3 nations to become Persia: Lydia, Babylonia, or Babylon, and Egypt. So it's interesting, he's got these 3 ribs in his mouth, which is a specific thing talking about how they became Persia. And this imagery, a bear is kind of bulky. It's not as majestic as a lion, but it's very powerful. And Persia basically overcame by just great sheer strength of number. Anybody remember 300? You remember seeing the Immortals, and you see Xerxes, and you see all these things. Just this big bear basically just... Can we pull up the map of Babylon first? It's kind of down in there somewhere. Okay, so this is Babylon in the green. And so they took over everything, Tigris, Euphrates, everything from the Persian Gulf over there, taking over, Judah, Syria, all that stuff right there. It's Middle East, basically. Okay, so that's Babylon. Let's go forward to, this is the Persian Empire. It goes all over. And they get stopped at Macedonia, of course, and the 300 Spartans and all that stuff. Okay, so you see where we're tying into history here? That same Xerxes, by the way, is the same Xerxes of Esther. So if you read the book of Esther, and you watch 300, that's the same Xerxes. Okay, so go read your Bible. Read your Bible, it's in there. Okay, so this bear is bulky. I mean, it's just sheer numbers. They just run over the world, and they consume these 3 ribs, which is Lydia, Babylonia, and Egypt, to become Persia. Okay, then there's a third beast, and it's a leopard with 4 wings and 4 heads. Guys, this is so specific. This is Daniel looking 200 years into the future. It has 4 wings, 4 heads, and dominion is given to it. So history shows us that this is Greece. Daniel, like I said, lived 200 years before Alexander the Great's rise. And I'm going to show you how this is Alexander the Great in Daniel chapter 8, but just hold on. Okay, so the leopard is used to talk about Greece throughout the Bible in Jeremiah 5:6, Hosea 13:7, Habakkuk, 1:8. Anyway, so leopard is used a lot for Greece. So leopard is not as strong as a bear, and it's not as majestic as a lion, but it's very nimble and very quick. Alexander, he conquers the whole known world. So let's put up Greece. Show us Greece. So he with lightning, almost blitzkrieg style, like Hitler did with his Panzer tanks. I mean, just and just takes over. And he was 20 years old whenever he did this, and he did it very quickly. So they have these wings, and they move fast, and it's a leopard. It's just very quick. Okay. The 4 wings actually are talking about how the empire, he has to entrust 4 generals to take care of, because it got so big, he couldn't take care of it all. And so it was split into 4 divisions: Thrace, Greece, Egypt, and Mesopotamia. Don't worry about it. And the 4 heads are Alexander's, after he conquered, and right before he died, he passed it on, not to his kids, but he passed it on to his 4 generals. So that's the 4 heads. So we can see easily this is the leopard. But it also tells us plainly in chapter 8. So Daniel goes into chapter 8. You guys still with me? Okay, so we're going somewhere. Guys, you don't even know where we're going. This is going to blow your minds. This is so funny. Okay, so Daniel goes into more detail in chapter 8, but the picture changes now from these 4 beasts to different creatures. Okay, so chapter 8, verse 4. I saw a ram pushing westward. This ends up being Greece. No, a ram. Never mind. The ram is Persia. I saw a ram pushing westward, northward, and southward. That's Persia. Let's pull up the Persian map again, real quick. Okay, so they're pushing westward, north, and south. So that is Persia. Actually, verse 20 interprets it for us. Same thing happens to him. He's like, tell him what the interpretation is. So verse 20 is the mirror of verse 4. Verse 20 says, the ram that you saw having 2 horns, they are the kings of Media and Persia. So basically Persia. Daniel 8, verse 5. We're going back up to 5. And as I was considering, suddenly a male goat from the west, so Greece, a male goat from the west comes across the surface of the whole earth, just boom, without touching the ground. I mean, he's moving so fast, it's like a, just real fast. And I can't even think of it. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. Okay, verse 21 will tell us the interpretation of this. The male goat is the kingdom of Greece, okay? The large horn that is between its eyes will be its first king. Who was its first king? Alexander the Great. And check this out. It's going to get more detailed. This is how specific God gets. This is crazy. Then he, Greece, came to the ram, Persia, and ran at him with furious power. And I saw him confronting the ram, and he was moved with rage against him, attacked the ram, and broke off 2 of his horns. Now check this out. Broke off both of his horns. Check this out. There were 2 very decisive battles where Alexander the Great just crippled Persia, and it was over. The 2 horns. I mean, it's just very specific. Therefore, the male goat grew very great, but when he became strong, the large horn was broken. Well, Alexander the Great died when he was 32 years old, at the height of his power. He took over at 20, and he died at 32 when he was great. The large horn was broken, and in place of it, 4 notable horns came and took the 4 winds, the 4 different directions. That was his 4 generals. The Bible prophesied Alexander the Great before he ever stepped foot on the planet. Isn't that interesting? Now, what you need to understand about Greece, this is just a side point, is and Alexander the Great making that, he brought Hellenization, which is basically the Greek culture and the Greek language and all that kind of stuff across the known world. So when Jesus came, it was very quick to spread the word of the gospel because everybody had the same language, they had the same culture, the Hellenization of it all. It worked it all together. And then, of course, when Rome comes, they make the roads. It makes the travel of the gospel very quick. So Alexander the Great actually plays a very big part in the Bible. Interesting. Okay, so so now we're going to back up to chapter 7 again. So we're talking about the 4th beast, the 4 beasts. We talked about the one that was the lion. Then we talked about the one that was the bear. And now we talked about the leopard, which is Greece. And then we're going to talk about the 4th beast. Someone say, the 4th beast. This is where it gets dicey. Chapter 7, verse 7. After this I saw in the night's vision, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible. He doesn't even say what it's like because it's so terrible. Maybe he is seeing something in the future. Maybe he sees tanks, or maybe I don't know what he sees, but it's made of iron. A 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong, and it had an iron teeth. This is the best he knew how to describe it. Which we find is the Roman Empire, going along with the head of gold, the chest of silver, the bronze, which is Greece, and then now the legs, which will be Roman Empire. It was different from all the other beasts that were before it. So somehow this empire is a little bit different than the ones before it. And it had 10 horns. Wait a minute, what? 10 horns, where did we hear that before? Right, Revelation, right? The beast that had 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, this is a prelude to Revelation. So he's seeing the same beast that John saw. All right, let's move on. Oh, this gets better. It just gets better. Okay. So Rome, like I said, splits between the Eastern and Western Empire. It persecutes Christians in the 1st and 2nd and 3rd century, and all of a sudden, the Christians love their captors and the people that are persecuting them so much that they end up winning over the Roman Empire basically to the Lord. And so Constantine makes it legal in the Edict of Milan, 312 AD, to be Christian is no longer illegal. He gets saved. The empire changes. It's like, you know what, we're not against Christian anymore. In fact, we're going to make it legal, and we're going to make it the state religion now. And they move it from Rome to Constantinople, which is up around Turkey, which is actually in Turkey. And so it splits in half. And so the Western Empire actually gets messed up by the invaders and stuff like that. But what's interesting is it rises back up to eventually become the Holy Roman Empire, which is still there today, run by the Pope in some kind of ways. Kind of like the King of England is kind of a figurehead, but still there's a lot of clout with it. The Eastern Empire, though, becomes the Byzantine Empire. Have you ever heard of the Byzantine Empire? Okay, the Byzantines are more Eastern than Western. Now Rome was very Western. The Byzantines are kind of more Eastern, but they're still Christian. But then the Byzantines end up getting taken over by the Ottoman Empire. So I'm going to say the Ottoman Empire. Now, this used to be well known. It's not well known anymore. The Ottoman Empire is the first Islamic nation in the world. Did you know that? It's ran by Aladdin and Jafar and Jasmine. Yeah. Didn't know they were Muslim, did you? Aladdin and Jafar and Jasmine, they're all Muslim because they're part of the Ottoman Empire. And the Ottoman Empire is the first Islamic nation. And it lasts, guess how long the Ottoman Empire lasts? Till 1918, because they get into the World War I. There's a lot of other things go into it, but they get into World War I. They lose against the Allies. They are no longer a nation. They die. The nation of the Ottoman Empire dies in one, basically day. All right, so this is kind of the history of Rome. So Rome is a different beast. Now, the West, it gets kind of messed up by the invaders, but it spreads over into England, and then England births the United States and Canada. And so you got the Eastern and the Western Empire. It's almost like you've got one foot standing over here, and then across the ocean, one foot standing in the United States. And it's a mixture of this iron of the Roman Empire that actually never died, and this interesting softness that's not nearly as... But there's other things too. Do you guys follow me? Okay. It's going to tell us where we are. It's a map. The GPS is locating and rerouting. Recalculating. Okay, so the fourth beast was different from all the other beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Someone say 10 horns. And verse 8, he says, I'm considering the horns, and what the heck? And there was another horn, what? A little one coming up among them. Okay, so the Roman Empire never dies, so it goes on into the feet, okay? So the iron still goes through the feet. And so now we're talking about the last days. This is past the ankles. Now we're into the toes, okay? I was considering the horns, and there was another horn that came up, a little one. It came up from among them, and before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. Okay, follow me here. Okay, so this little horn rises up among 10 horns. 3 of them get plucked out. Verse 24 interprets it, okay? The 10 horns are the 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, talking about the last days, and another horn shall arise after them. He shall be different than the first ones, and he shall subdue 3 kings. So it's believed by some scholars that the Antichrist, which is the little horn, and it talks about this little horn having eyes, and it speaks pompous things. This is the same language that's used of the Antichrist in the Revelation. Speaks pompous things, and it just basically he's just to God. And so it's believed that somehow there's like some kind of a EU, a European Union of some kind, but it's not just the EU. It's like the whole world is fit into 10 kingdoms, basically. And then Antichrist somehow rises up, white horse, rises up, promising peace. Somehow, it says he subdues 3 kings, so they think maybe he assassinates or somehow politically kills off 3 of the people, and the other 7 just say, okay, we're on your side. So that's kind of how they think it maybe happens. I don't know, it's all speculation. Verse 25 says, he will speak pompous words against the Most High. This is the phrase for the Antichrist. Shall persecute the saints of the Most High. This is also something the Antichrist does. And shall intend to change the times, or the Jewish feasts, and the law. He's going to try to change the Bible too. Then the saints shall be given to his hand for a time, times, and half times. We talked about this last week. That means 3.5 years. Back to Revelation. Okay, so we went backwards so we can go forwards. Now we're going to Revelation. Let's revisit this image of the sign. This is going to be fun. Okay, verse 2, 13 verse 2. Now the beast which I saw looked like a what? Greece. And his feet were like a what? Persia. And his mouth was like a Babylon. All these nations that had subdued the God's people. The beast, or the Antichrist, is a mixture of the 4 beasts from Daniel. All 4 of these come together in Revelation. And this beast, the Antichrist, is a mixture of these, what we call Gentile empires who suppressed God's people. These are all a sign or a picture of demonic oppression of God's people and God's plan. Trying to keep God's people and God's plan under the man. You know what I'm saying? This is the end times beast, though, but that has 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay, so the 7 heads represents all the nations who conquered Israel in history. 1, Egypt with slavery. 2, Assyria, which conquered the northern 10 tribes. 3, Babylon, that conquered Judah and then eventually took over Assyria. Medo-Persia took over after conquered Babylon, and then Greece took over that area after conquering Persia. Rome took over after conquering Greece. So these are the 7 heads. Wait, that's 6. Wait, what? What about the 7th head? The 7th empire, which was a part of the 4th beast in Daniel, Rome, this iron beast. What is this 7th head? And I saw, verse 3, 13, verse 3, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, meaning like killed. Now, these are all empires that we're talking about here. But the way it talks about it as though it's an empire, but it's also a man. Almost like you can't separate Hitler from Nazi Germany. It's like the man is you know what I mean? And that is him. So it's thought that maybe he gets a mortal head wound. We'll talk about that here in a little bit later. But the nation itself also. So I don't know. It's kind of speculation here. One of its heads, one of these 7 heads with 10 horns, had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled, and they followed this beast. Some believe that the final kingdom, or the 7th head, the one that died, might have been the one that died in 1918 with a fatal wound in World War I, was a resurrection of the Roman Empire. What Gentile nation or Gentile empire died and was resurrected? We don't know. But what all's happening in the Middle East right now plays a very, very big part in the rise of the Ottoman Empire. I think ISIS is a pretty big thing. Now you're like, oh my God, I've heard. No, you listen to me. ISIS fits the 4th beast description in several ways, and I'm going to tell you how. First, it is a continuation of Rome. Maybe not the lineage, but it absorbed. It's still there. That was it. And but it also maybe Rome being the landmass. It's just an idea. It's also very brutal, if not more brutal than Rome was. This iron monster that just chews up and tramples wherever it goes. Its goal is to create an Islamic state over the whole world, setting up a caliphate. And now, a caliphate is an Arabic word that means successor. And it's led by a supreme religious, you can Google this if you want, political ruler known as a caliph, or a successor to who? Muhammad. Some say he's a false prophet, I don't know. The caliphate was proclaimed in June 29, 2014, so last June, under ISIS. Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi was renamed Amir al-Mu'minin Caliph Ibrahim and was named the new caliph. I don't think he's the Antichrist. I don't know. The goal of this type of sect of Islam, though, is to unite the Muslim nations under one cause. Okay, so the 4th thing is it's a mixture of iron, the Roman Empire, but it's also the clay. What do I mean by that? Something weaker. What do I mean by that? ISIS and many terrorist organizations are not joined yet. So you got Hezbollah, you've got the Muslim Brotherhood, you got Iran trying to do nuclear power and nuclear bombs, and you got Syria, you got some Somalia. I mean, you just got all these different. But the terrorist organizations are all kind of linking together, almost like bloodlines coming together that are crossing over political boundaries. And so idealism is crossing past geopolitical lines drawn after World War I and II. You following me here? No. Okay. I'm sorry. Just go back and listen to it online. So there's this idealism that's rising up. Is it ISIS? I don't know. Will it be named something else? I don't know. There's ISIS once, and then there's ISILs, and there's a bunch of ISILs out there. I don't know, what it is. So it could change names tomorrow. Passed over. The Passover, just. It was ISIS, and then it was ISIL, and ISIL, just a bunch of ISILs. Anyway, never mind. Okay. Sorry. Well, there are people that were part of ISIL. Oh, anyway. Okay. Whew. Let's move on. So what's the weaker part? What's the weaker part of it? Let's look at this. So these terrorist organizations aren't really joined yet. They're all kind of eyeballing. Of course, they all want to be the leader. They all want to be the caliph, you know. But one of them's going to rise up and become, I think. Many radicals think that Saudi Arabia is actually whoring themselves out to the West. We're going to go into a little geopolitics. Someone say geopolitics. You may talk about this in political science. I don't know. But I don't know if you guys remember, but the U.S. dollar used to be backed by the gold standard, right? Fort Knox, gold. Nixon comes online and says, hey, there's not enough gold in the world to back our economy, so we're no longer going to be the gold standard. You guys following? Okay. So the dollar has to be backed by something, otherwise it's worthless. And if it's worthless, we crash as a nation. We go into obscurity. I mean, we're nothing. You know what I'm saying? So he made a deal with Saudi Arabia, which is the biggest producer of oil in the world, and that oil would trade only using the U.S. dollar, which is now called the petrodollar. And after the creation of this combustion engine, you know, in the early 1900s, oil began to drive the world. It powers our ships, powers your car, it powers the trucks that bring food to United and Walmart. It powers everything. Without oil, the whole world crashes. So we, with the American dollar, now control kind of the world, but it's because it's backed by, you know, it's backed by the petrodollar. So we are in connection with Saudi Arabia. Now, what does this mean? ISIS and other terrorist organizations hate Big Satan. Someone say Big Satan, which is you, the United States, and Little Satan, which is Israel. Go Google it. You'll just Google Big Satan, Little Satan. You'll find it. There's all kinds of terrorists throughout the years since the 70s calling U.S. Big Satan and Israel Little Satan, and now it seems like the U.S. is almost calling Israel Little Satan because we've even turned on our own allies. So those who really follow the Quran, and I don't have time to go into it, but I can show you. It hates Western civilization. It lives among us, but it hates the civilization. It hates materialism. It hates the immodesty of the Western culture. That's why the burqas and all that kind of stuff. And it hates, and they have these extreme laws encouraging the killing of homosexuals, adulterers, anyone who converts to Islam. They call those honor killings. They'll do them in the street. It actually happened last week, and it happens all the time. There's a pregnant lady and a man, young man, and they burnt a Quran, I guess, on accident. I guess she couldn't read and threw it in the fire on accident or something. I don't know what the story was, but this mob just comes in and they kill him, and it was called an honor killing, and nothing happens to him because that's what the Quran says to do, you know. So those who really follow the Quran. So anyway, I'm going to go on. So they have these extreme laws encouraging this kind of stuff, and but one of the strongest Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia, the seat of what's in Saudi Arabia? Don't say Renee. What's in Saudi Arabia? Mecca and Medina. Let's put that picture up here, okay? Ooh, ooh. Or no, that's the guy who's running ISIS right now, Barker. Go on to the next one, maybe. Is there anyway? Okay, there it is. Okay, so see here, right along the Red Sea, there's Mecca and Medina. Now this is where all good Muslims go to, you know, do their pilgrimage, right? But this is the country. It's one of the most powerful countries because it has the most oil that's trading with the West, using the Red Sea and crossing back and forth to the West and trading oil and everything. That's making it rich, you know, which once it was poor, and that's why one part of the Ottoman Empire that crashed, reason for it. But let's move on. But okay, so this one of the strongest Islamic countries, Saudi Arabia, the seat of their holy cities, Mecca and Medina, are in league with Big Satan, the infidel, in the West, and it's considered that it's whoring with the infidel, us. So this may be another form of the mixing of the iron with the clay, because it's this tension right now, but one day they're not going to let that continue. So ISIS's goal, their stated goal, is to run over any Muslim nation that is not as hardcore as they are, killing other Muslims that aren't as hardcore as they are, killing the infidel like Christians. And dude, if you Google search ISIS, just watch out. Your first pictures are going to be headless people. People getting their heads cut off for being Christians. So don't do it unless you got a strong gut like I don't have today. Then I saw it. And encouraging acts of terror in nations where they're not in control. So they'll enlist people, say, hey, we're not over you, but if you can go and kill a U.S. soldier, run him off the road, and if you just take a hatchet and try to hack away at some police officers up in New York, and why don't you try to kill some people up in Canada, and people that are crazy enough to say, okay, I'll do it, and they'll go out and they'll do it with them. And they'll, but it's not everybody, Mikey, it's just, okay. It's this it's the ideology that's rising above the geopolitical lines. It's an idea, it's a religion, it's rising above all the other things, you know. And it talks about it. Mama said there would be days like this, you know. There'd be a day like this, Mama said. So this all really kicked into gear, in high gear, and back in 2010 with the Arab Spring, and then the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and Hamas gaining power last summer in Palestine, and firing rockets at Israel, and Israel's like, hey, stop that. And then was like, hey, Israel, quit being so, why are you being jerks? And they're like, dude, I'm just defending myself, you know? And everyone's like, you need to quit that. You need to quit defending yourself. Like, dude, I am not going to let you shoot rockets at me. I'm not going to do it. Okay? I was there, and it was just crazy. It was crazy the way people's minds have shifted and turned and are being deceived. Jesus said in Matthew 24, when they said, what is the end of times? He says, the very first thing he says is, make sure that you are not deceived. And I'm telling you, there is mass deception going on everywhere. Because everyone wants to be fair, right? Let's be fair to the devil. Let's be fair. Let him have a shot too. No. Aragorn said, don't let the wizard speak. Okay, anyway. All right, let's move on. So now you got all these different things. Okay, let's take a look at the Ottoman Empire. Let's take a look at the Ottoman Empire. The globe, yeah. Okay, now that's the Ottoman Empire. And I want you to look at this map for a second. Where are all the Muslim countries now, or the Islamic countries now? All it would take is uniting with somebody who could rise up and unite them with one ideal. As far as I know, besides the Mexican cartels, the only people that still behead people, very archaic, which happens to those who don't take the mark of the beast, by the way. They get their heads cut off. Just makes sense. I don't know. Just kind of makes sense to me. We'll see. I could be totally wrong, though. I mean, I'm not dying on this hill. I'm just saying. Okay, so it's not far-fetched to see these nations joining together in their hatred for the infidel to create a caliphate. All right, let's go back to Revelation 13. This leads us to several actual events that happen in the tribulation. Remember, so we're just going to breeze over real quick. We talked about this last week. At the 3.5-year mark, when you put all the things together, I'm just going to list them out. There's a war in heaven. Satan's cast down to the earth. He knows his time's short, so he starts making war with Israel and with Christians who are on the earth at that time, who got saved through the tribulation. The Antichrist gets a head wound. We're not sure if it's the nation or the head or both. It says that the false prophet is able to resurrect him. I'm not sure if that's a real thing or if that's a fake resurrection, but it's believed that Satan actually at that point inhabits the Antichrist and possesses him. It's one of the thoughts. The false prophet resurrection could be a fake miracle. In any case, everybody believes that it's real, and they all say, okay. And I think that's probably where he takes out the other three, plucks the horns, the other three world leaders, and then the other seven say, all right, we're cool, we're with you. The treaty with Israel is broken. Israel is chased out of Jerusalem. The Jews get away. They somehow are able to hide. God is able to hide them. God protects them, and they end up turning to Jesus. So they all become Christians in the end anyway. 144,000 of them. There's some from each tribe that ends up being 144,000. The Antichrist, the devil, and the false prophet make war against the rest of the saints at that point. The two witnesses are killed by the temple, which there'll be a third temple. They'll be resurrected there on the Temple Mount. The Antichrist stands in that temple claiming to be God. The world believes him. The Antichrist becomes the world leader. The false prophet with all of his lying wonders, he's also able to do the same things that the false prophets were able to do. So everyone's like, well, I'll follow that guy, because he killed the two witnesses, so it seems like he's more powerful, so I'm going to follow that guy. But it'll be a counterfeit. Sets up the abomination of desolation desolation. We talked about this last week in the temple, and it's kind of crazy, but it sounds like it's like this big statue of the Antichrist, but the false prophet gives it power to like talk and kill people and stuff. I don't know what that's all about. Then they instate this thing called the mark of the beast. And this is a way of keeping track of everybody in their empire now. And and it says you cannot sell or buy food or anything without having the mark of the beast on your right hand or your forehead. You can't get food, you can't get gas, you can't get an apartment, you can't get medical attention. Just think about anything you can't do with a social security number, you can't do without the mark of the beast, because this is going to be a new world order. And it'll be in your right hand or forehead. It's very specific. So this isn't symbolic. This is like it's going to be in your right hand or your forehead. We're not talking symbolism anymore. This is no longer a sign. This is real events that are happening. And guys, get the good thing about the mark of the beast. The good thing about the mark of the beast is it's going to alleviate identity theft. I mean, that's good, right? I mean, yeah. It's going to make life a whole lot more convenient too. Hey, let me sell you on this, by the way, because this is really important. There's going to be all these horrible things. This would never pass now, and Snopes would say I'm just a retard, or what? No, not a retard, but stupid. That's totally dislocated from that. Anyway, that I would be dumb because I think, oh, this would never happen. And it wouldn't in a normal world, but with all these crazy things, the government's going to have to say, hey, man, we need to pull together. We got to join together. We need everybody to get this thing because people were disappearing in the rapture. A third of the people are gone, and maybe it's aliens. I don't know. We need to join together, and I don't know what's going to happen, but emergency powers will be declared. And so what fits this? Now, you Google this, I mean, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, Micah, you're so dumb. But I've been following this since 2004, and it's very interesting. It's RFID chip technology, radio frequency identification. Been following this since 2004, so for 10 years I've been watching just the development of the technology. I'm not saying that that's what it is. I'm not saying this is the mark of the beast. But I think it could be the technology, maybe the precursor to what could become the mark of the beast. You can have these implanted. You can actually order one. I looked it up on Google. I could order one. But it's this little thing. You put it in. It's like with a needle. You can put it into your hand, and or you can put one in your dog, GPS on your dog. You can have it implanted in your children. That's actually an option now. All right. But let me just sell you on this. Let me just sell you on the Verichip real quick. The Verichip, miniaturized radio frequency identification device, about the size of a grain of rice. Each Verichip contains a unique verification number, and unlike conventional forms of identification, Verichip cannot be lost, stolen, misplaced, or counterfeited. Hey, man, sign me up. This is from the Calgary Herald in 2004. I know it sounds like a long time ago, but I mean, how much has the technology advanced since then? The tiny microchip injected under the skin of a few nightclub patrons, so they're beta testing this, in Spain, is about to revolutionize the way the world as we know it. Called the Verichip, the device the size of a grain of rice is injected in the upper arm of revelers at the Baja Beach Club in Barcelona, Spain. At the nightclub, the tiny capsule can be detected by a little reader used by the waitress. It gives servers access to the patron's payment information and instantly processes the transaction. Man, no more pulling out my wallet. I don't even have to carry a wallet anymore. That's great. The technology also allows club VIP members, check this out, VIP members to be differentiated from other members, and it'll open up certain doors. You just scan the arm and bloop, you're in. They don't even have to carry their IDs or anything. They just walk in and there they are, said the club director, Conrad Chase. Retailers are poised to use the same technology for inventory control, making barcodes obsolete. So this is going to do away with barcodes. This is actually going to happen, by the way. It may also be used to give emergency workers, patients medical records with a wave of a wand or Or it might even prevent guns from firing in the wrong hands. If you have the identification that's in the gun that matches up with your hand, then you can fire the gun. If it's not, it won't. Hey, that sounds like a good thing. Yeah. The technology behind the VeriChip, which has been implanted in cats, dogs, and millions of other animals for more than a decade now, for identification purposes, uses something called a radio frequency, blah, blah, to do the work. It's the same technology that Walmart has ordered suppliers to start including in their products. And so over time, the barcode's going to go away, and this will be an easier way to do it. You can, with a touch of a button, just hit it, and then you'll know your whole inventory, no more man hours scanning, all the stuff. The technology is about to be used for purposes such as saving lives in law enforcement officials and giving emergency room doctors instant access to the patient's health care records. What goes on in the emergency rooms today is archaic, said Scott Silverman, Chief Executive of Applied Digital Solutions of the Palm Beach, Florida company behind the VeriChip. In theory, stores can dispense with checkout counters. We don't even need a checkout counter anymore. Instead, you can just grab the stuff off the rack, shelves, and walk out the door while the RFID reader takes note of the items and takes the money right out of your e-wallet. Your clothes, get this, check this out. Your clothes could tell your washing machine what settings to use because it's in the tag. RFID could give inanimate objects the power to sense, reason, communicate, and even act, says Glover Ferguson, chief scientist of consulting, film, etc. So, guys, when there is craziness going on in the world, it's going to be just normal, just natural. Yeah, oh, of course, we need to do this. We got to do it. I mean, the Patriot Act, right? Right? Dude, I'll give up my freedoms if you'll keep me away from those crazy people. Oh, yeah, you need 50 more bucks? Sure. Okay, all right, you need to have cameras all over my house? That's great. Yeah, come on in. I mean, if it'll save me from the threat, I need safety in my life. And see how we're so watered down. All right, so chapter 14, verse 14. Let's move off the mark of the beast here. To the end of that chapter foreshadows Armageddon. So chapter 14 brings us up to Armageddon, or it gives us a picture of what Armageddon's going to look like. And then this signs, once they sign, so this isn't how it happens. Jesus isn't this giant with a big sickle that comes down. But in the sign, that's what it looks like. That the harvest is calling. The harvest is there, and he comes down with a sickle, and he pulls all the saints up to heaven. And then he goes with a sickle again, and he cuts down the grapes. And this is symbolic of the wrath of the battle of Armageddon. Chapter 14, verse 20. And the winepress was trampled outside the city, and the blood came out of the winepress. Blood, not grape juice. Blood, so it's symbolic of Armageddon. This is going to be the last battle. And the blood went up to the horse's bridle for 1,600 furlongs. That's 200 miles. All the nations of the earth are going to amass to fight God in the valley of Megiddo, in the battle of Armageddon. And God's going to come down, lay down the whoop, and the blood is going to come up to the horse's bridle for 200 miles. Chapter 15 shows heaven and all those who are victorious over the beast, who had their heads cut off in the tribulation but didn't give in to the beast. And God honors that. Verse 6 starts the unleashing of the seven bowl trumpets, or seven bowl judgments. Then I heard a loud voice from heaven, or voice from the temple saying to the seven angels, "Go and pour out the bowls of wrath of God on earth." Now this is where it just gets crazy. This is going to happen so fast, it could happen within days. So bowl 1, horrible sores come on the people who have the mark of the beast and worship the image. Go to that picture. That's kind of a crazy picture. Yeah, okay, so here's the seven angels getting ready to pour out these vials or bowls, whatever. Next picture is them being given the bowl. One of them being given the bowl. Oh, there it went. Yeah, being given the vial, and they're getting ready to pour out this indignation. So then the next picture is these guys that have these the sores that are given to the people who have the mark of the beast. And again, this is grace, and I'm going to show you how. Again, like we talked about last week with the seven trumpets, there's still grace behind it. Bowl 2, the whole sea turns to blood. Now it's not just a third of the sea. Now it's the whole sea turns to blood. Everything in the sea dies. The third bowl is poured out. Rivers and springs become blood, all of them. Number 4, sun scorches men with fire. We can show that picture of the sun scorching the men with fire. Now, actually, if you read science right now, our sun is in a very hyperactive state right now. Some of that scientists are a little bit scared of. If just one X flare could just shut down, EMP, would take out everything if it hit in the right direction. So go Google sun hyperactivity, and you will find some crazy stuff. Totally doable. God pours out this, and the sun just blasts the earth and burns people. And then verse 9 says, and they blasphemed the name of God who has a power over these plagues. Curse you, God, even though God could save them. And they did not what? Repent and give him glory. It's like they're still so hardened. They're still so turned against God. Sounds like our culture today. God will give all the grace he can, and he has to make things a little tougher on you, but still, instead of saying, okay, God, I give up, you're right, I'm wrong, they shake their fist at God instead. Bowl 5 is like, all right, I'm going to put a little more pressure on you. Poured out on the throne of the beast, and the kingdom becomes full of darkness, and they gnaw their tongues in pain. There's so much pain. 16:11. And then what do? They say, God, I'm so sorry. You're right. I'm wrong. You've made yourself clear. No, they say they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their sores. They did not repent of their deeds. Bowl 6, the Euphrates River is dried up to make way for the kings of the east and this 2 million man army to cross over the Euphrates for this great war of Armageddon, or Battle of Armageddon. 16:13, then I saw unclean spirits like frogs, interesting, come out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. And for these spirits are of demons performing signs, which go out to the kings of the earth, of the whole world, to gather them for the great day of God Almighty. Behold, I am coming as a thief, Jesus says. Blessed is he who watches. Watch. He's just taking it aside to say, hey guys, by the way, watch. Now we're back in the story. Verse 16. And they gathered them together in the place in Hebrew called Armageddon. And the seventh angel poured out his bowl in the air, and the loud voice came from the temple of heaven. Finally, it's over, guys. There's no more turning. Now it's done. Like they had their chance and they didn't take it. From the throne saying, it is done. Almost like it is finished. Almost a foreshadowing of the cross, or a back shadow of the cross. Verse 18, and there were noises and thunderings and lightning, and there was this great earthquake, as such a big earthquake, that such mighty and great earthquake as had not occurred since the earth had begun. Verse 9, then we skip ahead to chapter 19:11. There's other things that happen. I don't got time to go into it. Now I saw the heaven opened up, and behold, a white horse, and he who sat on him was faithful and true. This is Jesus. And in righteousness he judges and makes war. He does this because it's right, not because he's mean, but because it's right. His eyes were like the flame of fire, and on his head were many crowns. Let's go to that picture. Yeah. His eyes were the flames of fire. Man, I do not want to make him mad. You know what? Jesus, you win. You can have it. Whatever. By the way, were you ever scared of your dad? Was your dad good? Yeah. I love C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis says about the lion Aslan, who is Jesus. He says, like all these creatures, like, well, what's he like? Is he safe? And they laugh. They go, no, he's not safe, but he's good. You get on the wrong side of daddy, I ain't safe. You get on the right side, man, I'm your best friend, Eli. So. You get on the wrong side, you get in the spoon, you get in the eyes of fire. It's good. It's freaky, all right? But not like that. I mean, that's big time fire. All right, let's go into the next verse, or the next picture. Just kind of follow. So the sword comes out. Okay, so his eyes were like flames of fire, and on his head were many crowns, and the name that was written on, and he had a name written that no one knew except himself. So his real name. He was clothed with a robe dipped in blood, his own blood, and his name was called the Word of God, Logos. And the armies in heaven, clothed in fine linen and white, clean, followed behind him on white horses. You thought 300 was cool? This was going to be crazy. Now out of his mouth comes the sharp sword, and with it he should strike the nations. I think that's his words, just explode things. Truth comes out and just destroys the deceptions of those kingdoms of the earth. And he himself will rule them with an iron rod. He himself treads the winepress, like we talked about a minute ago, and the fierceness of the wrath of God Almighty. And he has on his robe and on his thigh the name King of Kings and Lord of Lords. And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried out with a loud voice, saying to all the birds that fly in the midst of heaven, come and gather together for the supper of the great God. For you may eat the flesh of kings, the flesh of captains, the flesh of people, free and slave, both small and great. And I saw the beast, the kings of the earth, and their armies gathered together to make war against him who sat on the horse and against his army. What in their right mind would make them think they could fight God? Unless they didn't think he was God. One theory I have is, the rapture, say it happens, and a third of the world disappears. What's the first thought that 21st century people are going to have? Aliens. Okay, what does it say about Satan? He can appear as what? An angel of light. So he can look like an angel of light even though he's darkness. If an alien sighting happened on CNN tomorrow, we've all, or not all of us, but many of us have seen the movie Prometheus. Anybody seen Prometheus? Where there are these architects, architects who designed us, and then like the disinterested clockmaker walked away and are watching it, and then the people in Prometheus, they go back and he tries to find his maker, this alien, and it says, "Why did you make me?" And of course the alien just crushes his head, and this is the lie. And God's truth is that he loves his creation. But this is the underlying messages that we're being fed through entertainment, and we're learning about it's really shaping who we really think God is, our maker. And back in the back of our mind, we might think maybe he's like that alien in Prometheus. So an alien shows up, or a sighting shows up, and now somebody's got to unite the world, because we've all seen Independence Day, right? And so the world unites under one banner, one time, to fight the aliens, and we're going to stick it to the alien man. And the Antichrist rises, and he's like, but to do this, man, we got to make sure no one's disappearing, so let's get everybody a mark of the beast, and blah, 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 and we're going to track you guys, we're going to make sure that we're all on the same, we can march together, and we're going to go forward, we're going to fight at Armageddon. And they think they can beat God, which is crazy. The only reason I think that, unless they're just so dang deluded that they think they can win against God, is if they think he's not God. And I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and the armies gathered together to make war against him who sat on his horse and against his army. And the beast was captured, and with him the false prophet who works signs in his presence by which he deceives those. Someone say deceives. What's the devil's number one weapon? It's not lust. It's not greed. It's not pride. Guess what his number one thing is? Deception. He makes you think you're right when you're totally wrong. He deceived those who received the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. These two, the false prophet and the Antichrist, were cast alive into the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And this is justice. And the rest were killed with the sword which proceeded from the mouth of him who sat on the horse, and the birds filled their mouth with flesh. Let's go through those pictures. Go ahead. So the words just explode, and the bodies are laying out, and the birds are eating. And here's the King Jesus, coming out like they got on the wrong side of him that day. And he's got these crowns, and it's pretty cool. So that's kind of a downer place to leave it tonight, but see you next week. Let me finish with this. Fast forwarding to chapter 21. There's a few things that happened before that, which we're going to cover next week. But then I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from heaven, prepared as a bride adorns for her husband. So, all right, here comes the bride. And I heard the loud voice from heaven saying, "Behold, the tabernacle of God is" what? With men. And he will dwell with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. You no longer need separation between us. and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There shall be no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying. There'll be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. Then he who sat on the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. And he said to me, Write these words that are faithful and true. And he said to me, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give of the fountain of the water of life freely to anyone who thirsts.